The special budget meeting on February 16th at 5:30 to order. Mr. Jacobs, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Last fall, I was talking with Mr. Jacobs after, I believe, a race, and we found out that we both attended Officer Candidate School in the Navy, a few years apart, but we were both in the same company while we went through OCS, so it was a really nice chat I had with Mr. Jacobs that day regarding our backgrounds and our tours of service in the United States Navy. So,
Well, thank you for your service.
and thank you, sir. Thank you for yours. Okay, moving on. This is the first time we've had human resources, I believe, come before us, Tracy.
No pressure.
And here again, and the main reason is obviously this is the first time we've really had a director of human resources, and there's an adjustment obviously to your salary to bring you up to that director thing, but we're also you've also requested some money for an assistant and so forth like that. So if you could go back just your request for your need for that assistant, and what especially I think would help educate us is the needs for that assistant, not just the day-to-day filing or all the other things, because even once we get everything done, there's still a lot of that extra work that we've all seen at our town hall. So I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks. I actually have like a little.
Please.
Is it okay? All
Yeah,
right.
just make sure the microphone's on and. Okay.
Okay. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Santos, and I'm the Human Resources Director here for the town of East Lyme. My objective is to continue to create and maintain a fully operational human resources office or department for the town and its employees. Since my arrival here last July, many positive improvements have occurred by increasing the hours of my position from 33 to 37 and approving a funding for a part-time temporary assistant that we have now. We've been able to accomplish a lot of good things. A few of the things being compliance issues regarding personnel files, I-9 forms, and our employment applications. 2 of the 3 are complete I-9 forms we're still working on, making them compliant. Organized and created necessary employee personnel and confidential files. We didn't have confidential files. We have them now for each employee. Created and streamlined the onboarding process for new hires by creating checklists for hiring and resigning and retiring employees to be sure all necessary tasks are done for them to onboard. We went through the state of Connecticut records retention process to properly dispose of documents that no longer needed to be kept in the building or in the office. However, there's so much more to be done. Automating our employee time and attendance records, which we are currently looking into. Right now we're doing everything on paper time cards, 3-part carbon time off request forms, and a tremendous amount of manual data entry. Updating our employee handbook, which hasn't been updated since 2005. Updating job descriptions and implementing a process for employee performance evaluations. So for the need for the assistance for our secretarial and administrative support is to help with the day-to-day clerical work, such as typing letters and documents and reports, greeting people that come to the office all the time so that I can get, I love seeing people, that's the HR department's job, but I'm interrupted a lot and it's hard to get my work done, projects, reports, and whatnot. So helping with greeting people, screening calls, maintaining personnel files, confidential files, and doing the filing for that. Assist with the new hire process by scheduling physicals, and we now do background checks, so helping with that. Assisting with recruiting process, arranging for the advertising of the positions, maintaining the application files, scheduling interviews and employment records. Assist with setting up training for departments and employees. Let's see. May fill in as support for other offices, for Selectmen's office, town clerk. We had talked about sharing.
Yeah,
if
and I'll
need be.
explain that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought so.
yeah.
Assist with workers' comp reports. We get quite a few of those here, but thank goodness most of them are not so bad. Assisting with the FML paperwork and the compliance for that. and assisting with the ACA data entry and filing. And that's just a few of the things I just wanted to jot down quickly. for the need for that position.
Okay. And I can speak to the clerical position there too. Tracy had initially asked for 50,000 for a full-time, and then I explained to her, you know, that would be a little bit difficult. And I reduced it to 30,000, and that would roughly provide at the normal rate for that type of position about 25 hours a week. And I explained to Tracy we could dedicate on a definite basis 15 hours a week for her office. You know, at times more, but 15 hours. And we have times during the year where the clerk needs some assistance. Also, too, right now, for instance, and very much earned it, Sandy had to take last Friday off. And if I wasn't here, that would have been required my door to be shut all day. I just don't think that's good. So this person would be cross-trained to where on a day like that, that individual could work from Sandy's desk so that there'd be someone in there as well as me to answer the calls. And if I had to step out for a while, there'd still be someone there. We went through a minor, it turned out not to be a problem, but in the clerk's office, one person was out 1 week with an illness, and if they hadn't been back the following Monday, because the second person was out that week, we would have had to lock the door because we would have had no town clerk or assistant that could serve in there. So the only alternative there is, because those records are confidential a lot that they'd be handing out, would be to shut that door, and we couldn't have done so. This person would have, you know, primarily an HR resource, but cross-trained enough to help out in the clerk's office and possibly in the selectman's office when needed. So that's what we're looking for. This would, I hate to use the word floater because that means you don't have a person. This person will have more than enough to do.
I'll share.
And here again too, I indicated if they had to sit in the selectman's office, they could still be doing work for Sandy at the same time. I mean, for Tracy at the same time. But at least there'd be somebody manning that to answer the phones and make sure that everybody that'd be calling needs were made. So with that, I'll open it up to anybody's questions. Ann?
So for that part-time clerical HR assistant, you said it was 25 hours a week. Is that benefits then, or no?
No benefits, no.
Okay. And then my next question is, employee background checks, what does that entail?
We acquired a service last month, Cssc background checks. So I love the program. I had it in my previous organization. What it is I email them, the employees' email and personal information, name, address, whatnot, and then they send off an email to the employee asking for authorization to do a background check, federal, state, sex offender, all that stuff. We didn't have that wasn't in place here when I arrived. So now we're doing that on all new hires.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Bill?
Do you know how many hours Human Resources was spending in 2021 before you started, or 22?
I know the person was scheduled to work 33 hours a week. Is that right? Before I left? I don't know how much she worked, but that's what she was
No,
saying.
I'm just trying to compare from before to now.
Okay.
I mean, clearly there was understaff, or in my opinion, understaffing. And I'm just trying to get a feel for how much this total increase is. So that's all.
Okay.
That was my only question.
What? Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah. For the background checks, backtrack there.
Yes.
What is the company's name again that does?
Cssc background.
SSC.
They're out of New Haven.
And is that a company that other municipalities use?
I don't know about other municipalities. I used it at the college that I worked at prior to coming here, and it worked very well for us.
Okay.
Yes, so then I guess I didn't finish when I was talking to Ann. So once the employee authorizes the background check, it's performed, and then a report comes back to me and to the employee, potential employee, letting them know our findings, and if everything's clear, then we're able to hire them, and if not, then we have to tell them we can't and why.
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And just a clarification too, this does not involve the police department. That's a much more thorough involved
Yes.
Background check when
Okay,
it
so
comes
they
to
do
it.
their own.
They do their own with
Right.
fingerprinting, a whole lot more.
Yes, I just wanted to
Yeah.
Neighborhood
differentiate there.
yeah,
That
home
it's a
visits and so forth
private
like that.
company that you've had experience with, that
Yes.
you recommend,
Yes,
and
and
see
they
how
were
that
very
goes.
reasonably, I did I compared other companies too, and they were pretty reasonably priced, right? We looked at over.
We looked at several,
Yeah.
actually, this was her
Okay, thanks for
preferred
that.
provider, and they were, I believe they were the most economical as well.
Right.
And I do know a couple of retired troopers that work for this organization as well, so they do know what they're
They're
doing.
very reputable, they,
Great.
yeah.
Do they give you like, is it a flat fee or is it per like
No.
background check?
No, it depends on, how many locations the person has lived in, how many states, and depending on what they find, they may need to do more tracing. So far, it's been averaging about $35 to $40 a person, which is pretty good.
How far back do they go?
I believe it's 10 years,
Thank you.
yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
You know,
Oh, I'm sorry,
No, that's
Ann.
okay. Oh, no, no, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I jumped in.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Go back to you, Ann.
Oh.
in a minute.
no,
Go ahead.
I think my questions have been answered.
Okay.
Okay, so I just had a question about supplies. Let's see, where are we in supplies here? Let me just turn the page. Yeah, just a bit of a jump there, I think.
Well, let's just say the $200 when I arrived.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
That's
responsible.
very
Yeah,
low.
I'm actually responsible for ordering all supplies for myself, tape, staples,
Yeah,
pencils, and toner for my,
Okay.
I do have an ink printer right next to me.
Okay,
So I
so
didn't have any, so I had to beg, borrow, but I didn't steal,
No.
supplies when I
That's fine.
arrived, and thank
Yeah,
goodness
so
people.
setting, just so that looks like a big jump, but setting up a department is
Yes,
what it
that
entails,
and
so,
to
no
maintain it now
problem.
with personnel files, we purchased 7 personnel files now, which
Okay.
are more,
Yeah, just wanted to make
prefer-
sure we weren't
yes.
doing like PPE that we can be reimbursed for or something like that.
No.
no,
Okay, that's fine. That's it for my questions. Thanks, Tracy.
Mrs. Hardy.
I'm all set.
Okay. And just to give you some idea, I mean, Tracy she found a box with letters for employees that were letters of reprimand and so forth, but they've been in a box, not in a personnel file for well over a decade. And the response was, what should I do with them now? It's kind of late to put them in the personnel file then. So, these are some of the things that we've been cleaning up, and it's to the point where I've asked department heads if on Mondays and Fridays, if it's not urgent, to try and let her get to most of her other work too, so that she can get caught up. So it's been and here again, I've had some interactions with HR before, but not at this level. So it's quite impressive what I've seen happening. So anyway.
thank you.
Any other questions for Tracy? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Lisa, it's you, or are you going to come up with her too, Mr. Jacobs? Or
I'm gonna start.
please do.
I think I know just about all of you, but by way of introduction, my name is David Jacobs, and I'm president of the Board of Trustees of the library. And I just want to make 2 brief statements, and then I'll turn the chair, or turn the mic over to Lisa, who will deal with any questions regarding the budget. First of all, I just want to thank all of you here. I think I know just about all of you, and I know you've all given a lot of time to the town of East Lyme. I know, Kevin, you've been on the Board of Ed and 6 other boards and commissions. I know Ann used to be on Board of Finance. Roseanne has given her whole life to the town of East Lyme. Dan has served before. Ann, I don't know your background, but I'm sure you've also. And the reason I'm even mentioning this is, as some of you may know, I was on the Board of Finance for 8 years. I was former chairman of the Board of Finance. So I know more than most people in town know the commitment and the time it takes to serve on any of the boards or commissions. Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Education, Planning, Zoning, you name it. It's a tremendous commitment of time, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm aware of that, and to thank you for all you're doing and the time that you put in for the town of East Lyme. So that was the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to mention is specifically about the library. Our library is, well, let me back up a little bit. About half the libraries in the state of Connecticut are a town, part of the town government, just like Parks and Rec or Board of Education or any other division within the town government. About roughly 50% of the libraries, municipal libraries in Connecticut, are nonprofit corporations, and that's where we are. Historically, the East Lyme Library is not technically part of the town of East Lyme. We're a nonprofit corporation. That said, we receive, and again, approximately 95% of our operating budget, and capital budget too, for that matter, from the town of East Lyme. Historically, this board and the Board of Finance have been very, very understanding of our needs and very generous in providing our funding. So I wanted to just clarify our status. Our employees are technically not town employees. They're employees of the East Lyme Library Corporation, a nonprofit corporation. But I just want to acknowledge our thanks for the tremendous understanding and generosity of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance over the many years that I've been associated with the library, and we appreciate your support. So I just wanted to go on record by mentioning that. That said, any details about the budget, I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Lisa Timothy.
Thank you, Dave. And just out of curiosity, Dave, do you remember what the entire town budget was when you were back as the chair?
When I was on the Board of Finance, I think Connecticut had just become a state.
Because I think
To be honest.
You left in '97. I remember that. It was
97, is that what it was?
Yeah, so I would be interested in to see.
No, I really don't.
Yeah. We won't tell anybody because they'll be like, whoa, it's really going,
It's
yeah.
probably what Lisa's salary is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Oh, what, yeah, I shouldn't say that, though, either.
know.
Anyway, but Dave,
I
thank
know.
you for your past service, and thank you for your service to your country, too.
Lisa.
All right. I just want to echo the appreciation that Dave expressed. I do appreciate everything that all of you do for the town and the library. Our budget's not very complicated. We're not looking for a big increase this year. We're still waking up from the pandemic. Our door counts are slowly drifting up, but they're not what they were before the pandemic. They're at about 60% of what they were. However, our circulation is at 100%, and our ebook circulation has skyrocketed. So people are coming into the library less often, but they're taking out the same amount of materials and whatnot. Our programs are still virtual. We're planning to go back to regular programs, at least for the adults this summer. The children, because of depending on the vaccine and whatnot, may stay virtual or may spread out outside. We're still trying to figure out and see where that'll be. That being said, we're not looking for a big increase this year. We are getting increased prices for some of our databases. Our Lion Consortium services went up a little bit. There is a staff raise that's in line with what the town unions get. And all being said, again, we're looking at 0.56% of an increase. It's
Maybe
pretty.
you'd explain what the Lion Consortium is, too?
Lion Consortium is one of 3 consortiums in the state of Connecticut for public libraries. We belong to a consortium of 30 different libraries. We trade resources back and forth. We get services, technology services, computer setup and whatnot.
Just having somebody shut the doors because there's other meetings coming in. So.
And our ebook collection, e-magazines, e-audiobooks partially go through the Lion Consortium. They're a good deal. We were one of the founding members of that back in the 1980s of that consortium. So we aren't requesting any capital funds, but we'll be back here tomorrow night asking for, along with the other members of the community center, for a feasibility study. We are completely out of space. We have been out of space for more than a decade. We can't really expand our programs very much in the future until we have more appropriate space to work with. We lost 5 staff members during the pandemic, part-time staff members. We have hired 2 back. We also had 1 die. But we've hired back 2 part-time staff members, and because we're not open till 9, we're still only open till 7 p.m. We've been able to save quite a bit of money. We carried forward a lot of money last year, so we actually took a reduction last year at this time. So we're not asking for a very big increase this year. We've taken some of that extra money from not having the part-time employees and hired a grant writer, and we've pulled in $32,000 worth of grants this year for the town and to fund some of what we're doing. That's the highlights for the past year from the library. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Lisa?
I don't have any questions, but I think the biggest bargain in town these days is go to the library. They even provide the bag. You can get an entire bag of books for $5.
We did a lot of weeding to get some more space during the pandemic. We had to spread out, so we had people spread out in the stacks to go through the collection pretty thoroughly. So, but thank you.
Yeah. One of the interesting things we found out too is the e-books. Sometimes people have to wait for them because there's only so many you can get, and it's a waiting list. So, I said that people can donate to that cause as well, so they become more available. So it was interesting finding that out when you came to present to us here.
Yeah, our ebooks come through the Lyme Consortium, which means when you go on a waiting list, you're along with 30 other towns, so you can be quite a bit far back. But then we can get more copies because we have more money from the 30 libraries together. What's been frustrating is the ARPA funds that came to us from the federal government. We weren't allowed to spend any of that on ebooks, and if it was up to any of the librarians, we would have immediately spent it on ebooks because we know that's where the need is. But we're doing the best we can with it and muddling along.
Yeah, I would think with the ARPA, you'd think ebooks would be one of the prime things that would qualify under ARPA because it's where people would have access to it without
Right,
having to
and
go
so
out.
I believe some states were allowed to do that, but Connecticut opted out of that option. I don't know why. It's been frustrating to all of us, but we've moved some of our book budget money to ebook collections that we can provide for our town first, and then it reverts to the general collection. So we're finding ways of working with it.
Okay. Ann?
Just a quick question. Can you just tell me a little more about the grant writer? Like, how many grants they apply for, how long, just in general?
We hired someone who she just charges hourly. She has a lot of experience getting grants for nonprofits. We've had her just work on one grant, the Connecticut Humanities grant that we got to cover the strategic planning for the new Eastline History Center, and we did get the $10,000 grant. That both is 50%, and both of us wrote it and
No, is this
presented it.
person the one who goes out and finds the grants, or do you say, oh, here's a grant,
Um,
and you know?
For the Connecticut Humanities, it was one that I found and talked about, but she has proposed other ones that we're looking at for both the library and the History Center.
Oh, that's great.
So, but she's identified some. She's done work for High Hopes Therapeutic and Mystic Seaport. So she's retired. I think she's retired. I'm not sure, but she said she had some time and said would be willing to work on an hourly fee for some of the grants, and she's been useful for that.
Oh, that's great, thank you.
Yep.
And you're meeting with the building committee tomorrow to go over options for?
No, ARPA.
Oh, yes.
The ARP. Well, we're meeting ARP and then zoning. I have 2 meetings tomorrow night: ARP for the funding and then the zoning for the History Center.
Okay.
So.
That was what I was saying, because I've heard over the years that you're out of space, and
Mhm.
I would think that if somebody would look at ways to optimizing that building as a whole, because it does seem to be a lot of empty space in the
Mhm.
building.
Yep.
And more efficient ways to use the building before we start building new.
That's exactly what we're thinking. We all have ideas of things we can do. We just don't know if we were to, knock down this wall, if is it a supporting wall or not. We need to know things like that before we go ahead and do that. And one of the things I want to propose tomorrow is closing off one of our pods to make us an additional meeting room for about $5,000. We could create a meeting room if it's fire safe. I've got to check with the fire
A
department.
little bit of space, if we move some of the antiques into the dispatch center, if that becomes a historic storage, yes?
You lost me there.
Some of the art, the stuff in the East Lyme room there.
Oh, the East Lyme room. Yes, some of that will be eventually moved over to the History Center, not right away, but within the next year or so, maybe. Some of it belongs to us, some of it belongs to them, some of it's duplicate we have to go through, and we have the consultant, the $10,000 grant we got is a consultant who will help us go through that and decide what should be where and how to optimize the spaces that we have. She's one of the top people. She's the state's museum coordinator for libraries and historic museums. So she's coming in and helping us figure that out. But even still, that just clears the shelves in the East Lyme room. It doesn't really give us any meeting space or programming space.
It basically returns that room to what it was designed for in the first place. So,
Right, yeah, that room serves as everything. It's adult programming, it's board meetings, it's a historic center. We move those tables and everything back and forth quite a bit, so.
And I don't mean to get into it here, I just think for meeting rooms and things like that, there's other places in that building where you can have the meeting rooms.
Yes.
And that's where I say, if you get somebody that does the whole view of the building.
Exactly.
Town, look at the whole building, and what's available in the old dispatch center and what's available in the new safety complex, there's probably pieces that can move around.
Yeah, we'd like to do a makerspace, so that's, you know, I've seen some really nice state-of-the-art ones, and we don't have any room, and we think we can use some of the space in youth services, and I've talked with Dave Putnam, and he's on board, but again, we don't know how we can reconfigure that safe space layer. We need to talk to a professional to know how to make the best use of what we have available to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a question or two, Lisa. The ARPA money that you got, the 18,199. So, was that through the state library system? Because
Yes.
it must have been through something else.
It didn't come through the town, no. It came
Right.
through IMLS, Institute for Museum and Library
Ah,
Services,
okay.
and I think they gave a grant to the state, they gave money to the state library who gave it to us.
Right.
We have a separate,
Okay,
funding
'cause
stream.
There's many funding sources
Right.
within ARP that don't even involve municipalities. Okay.
right, that was one of them. We had a separate one. We were very limited in what we could do with that, though. We got water fountains, we got air filters, and we got furniture for the children's room. We have reconfigured some of the children's room with new furniture, and we took some of our private money and built new shelving so that we have more of a toddler space and an bigger kid space. And move things around a little bit. We're still waiting for some of that stuff to come in. It's been more than 8 months,
Wow,
but we're
okay.
slowly getting the
But
pieces
good.
put in there. So
And then I had one question about the annual drive, and you were
Mm-hmm.
expecting in this year, I think, is it usually kind of like a summer time? Is it happen in the summer, spring, summer?
we send out a mailing usually the second or third week of July, and then we send a reminder mailing in November, just after
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
So you expect less money in this
Yes.
looking forward, rather, I mean, you had a pretty good
The pan-
21, 22, the 39,000 plus.
That was the most we
which
ever
is
gotten in a
amazing
year.
to me.
Yeah, that's the most we ever gotten in a year ever.
Yeah.
That was our record breaker during
Yeah.
the pandemic,
So
and
you
so.
just have to kind of guesstimate, looking at historical numbers.
Yeah, it's usually between 32 and 35, and we're on track for closer to 35 when I look at it month by month to see where it
Okay.
is.
So hopefully
So, yeah,
that'll happen for you.
yeah, we're hoping to get more, but we'll see. We've still got a few more months.
Yes, things normalize. And then grant writer, thanks for discussing that, in Ann's question, because, it may be something that the town will tap into in other ways. This is something we've all been, discussing for the last number of years. And
Yeah, well, if I can be
looking
any-
forward, with what's coming down the pike with more federal money, I think it's gonna be almost indispensable.
Well,
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made more sense for us to have a grant writer right now than another
Yeah.
person at the
And
desk.
there'll
'Cause
be multiple,
it's-
cast of characters
there's-
there, I'm sure.
Yeah, if I can be of any help, let me know. Like I
Yeah,
said,
that's great.
particularly with the History Center, once we get established as an official museum, that IMLS, Institute for Museum and Library,
Right.
that same funding stream will be eligible for more grants out of there. But we have to be established first, and we're not established yet, so.
Okay, well, thank you, and I'll look forward to tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, see you then.
Mr. C?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Roseanne? Okay. Again, Lisa, thank you, and,
Thank you.
we did, I met with Dave, Kathy, and Dave Putnam, Kathy, who we'll still give in just a minute, and Lisa, to talk about the building, because in the capital plan going a year down the road, we have, the roof is 30-plus years old. It needs to have some work done on it. And here again, it's not accessible to really put a second floor on that building as it is, but I think it's worth what Bill said. Is there a way that we can, for a reasonable sum, make some alterations to that building to make it more user-friendly? I mean, most of the space is straight above. We can't use that, in those the high ceilings and so forth like that. But what else can we do in some other areas, or take some areas, these long open spaces, and maybe cordon those off into a meeting room? I think, the area we're talking about is something we definitely like to look at. And we'll talk about this when we get into our deliberations, but a grant writer with the infrastructure bill that just came out, I'll be handing out something during our meeting at the end of it for you to take home and look. It shows a lot of projects coming up where it's going to require grant requests. And, our people, it's hard to have them sitting down doing this. So on our Southeastern Connecticut Council of Government, we have a resource there that we can figure out how to tap into that. I've reached out there. So we're going to look at that type of thing to see if that can help us get some funds in as well. That sidetracks away, but you brought up a good point when you brought your grant writer.
Yeah, we
But thank you, Lisa.
pivoted a little toward
And
grant
thank you
writing.
and how's your book drop outside working?
Good, good. Got a little snow with that big storm
Yeah, I can imagine.
a few weeks ago. We thought, oh no, it's brand new and it's got water in it, but that was an exceptional storm. It's been fine otherwise. And
Well, we got some rain and wind coming tomorrow night and Friday, so.
yeah, it is what it is, but
Okay.
it's working out
All right,
fine.
thank you. And Dave,
Thank
thank
you.
you for coming to support her. Good evening, Kathy.
Good evening.
As you can see, Kathy's budget is fairly steady and so forth like that, but it's always great to have her come because,
You like me so much.
well, that you know, the fact that, you know, it's good to hear you're starting to get more people coming back and so forth, but we'll let you go ahead and present your budget, and that is.
Well, I liked how Lisa described it, that we're starting to wake up from the pandemic. So in the fall of 2019 and in the early part of 2020, we were bursting at the seams in terms of programs and where things were happening in the building, and transportation was really busy, and we're, you know, we're just not back at 100% at this point. It was in May of 2021 that we started bringing programs indoors. And as I mentioned at a department head meeting recently, the Zoom experiment for senior centers was a flop. It just is not something, it did okay with some things, but it really wasn't anything that, it just wasn't serviceable. So we started bringing programs in May of 2021. July of 2021, we pretty much had all of our programs back up and running. We had transportation back up and running at our usual, allowing 12 people on a bus or whatever it was. Then we have mask mandates on, mask mandates off, so that affects how many people are on the bus, come, you know, off the bus. So it's been an up and a down, and it's interesting because there are people that are adamant that they want the masks, they want masks on, they want masks, and then there's people that are like, I'm not coming in unless I can take my mask off. So it's like, so it's still, it's the road that we've all been on. So it's been interesting, but we are coming around, we are seeing more people. So for people that don't necessarily know what the senior center does, I just wanted to give you a brief little, so it's basically 3 pillars. So it's the programming side, which is, you know, fitness, educational, fun, party, craft, game, whatever. Social service side, which is helping people with energy assistance, rental rebate, Medicaid applications, Medicare information, calls from the ambulance or the fire department about somebody that, you know, they went into their house and there's problems there. And then there's transportation, which is, you know, getting people to the senior center, to medical appointments, to grocery shopping, to errands, whatever. So there's 3 things that we do, and each one of them is probably something that one person could handle, but, you know, it is what we are. So with that, as we're coming around, I'm anticipating that we're going to have a booming summer, because I feel like unless we get some really crazy COVID numbers, people are just ready. They're ready to just be back in and participate in life again. So with what we're doing right now with terms of our budget is we're pretty much budgeted at where we were pre-pandemic in terms of staffing and all that. I do have a little bit of an increase in my part-time driving, and that's driven by, crazily enough, that there's so many medical options now that they're all over the place. And I think I've mentioned this before. It used to be, when I started 100 years ago, it was L&M. You went to New London, all the doctors were around L&M Hospital, and that's where you brought everybody. Well, now they're everywhere. So we do write a grant every year for our Dollar Ride program that we participate with about 10 other towns. That's specifically for medical appointments, but that's still, it's just not quite enough. And we feel like if we can expand a little bit to Lyme, Old Lyme, and go into New London, Waterford a little bit more, then we can really help people meet the needs of their medical needs. Because the other piece of the pandemic was that
people couldn't get into doctors. And we have a whole category of people that aren't doing telemedicine, that we talked about Zoom as an issue. Telemedicine is just another, Zoom option, and it was a whole lot of people that had no interest in that. So that's basically where my increase is some increased staffing for transportation to be able to help people move around. And again, I'm thinking that we're going to get busy as people are just ready. They're just ready. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Could you explain too, help them out too, about the Powerhouse account, because that comes up every so often when you're purchasing something, and with Ann and two Anns and Bill, they've seen it before when it comes to the Board of Finance, but it might be good to describe.
So the Powerhouse account was created back when the senior center first relocated out in the community center, and it was a way for the community to donate money to the senior center so that the senior center could purchase things specifically for the senior community that might be hard for us to get through a Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance review. So things that we've purchased with that, for example, I write a grant usually every few years to get a vehicle purchase through the 5310 grant with the Department of Transportation, and there's XYZ dollars that we have, and then if we go over it, then we'll reach into the Powerhouse account to help pay for that. That's something that we've used. I purchased a grill, or just like things like that. What else I'm trying to think, maybe there's probably a computer or office furniture or something that's specific to the senior center and or seniors, so that it's a way for us not to have to navigate through this, and maybe just have a funding source that's not as difficult to get
every
through.
so often you'll see an approval come by and you'll see some of the matching money come from that account, so just have to. Questions for Ms. Wilson?
On
Please.
the Powerhouse Fund, that when the requests are made to access the funds, that it's only required that it come before the Board of Selectmen.
Well, that's right too. It doesn't go to finance.
It doesn't.
Right.
Oh,
So I just
excuse me.
wanted to
Oh,
make
yeah.
that
Yeah, because
clarification.
it's not appropriating from it. Yeah. Thank you. So it's good we did mention because you hadn't seen it before. So
Sorry about that.
you will
yes.
not. You will on occasion now. So.
Well,
so-
what happens is that my commission approves it. So, if I have an idea, then my commission approves it, then it comes here and it's approval through here. Yeah.
And I might also add that under that fund, that is only supposed to fund things that the town should not be supplying. That was what it was set up for.
So if it's appropriate for the town to fund it, then that fund should not fund it?
That's correct. This should be for the extra things that are needed that the town would not ordinarily buy.
Is that in some kind of ordinance or something?
No, it's in the way that the account was set up, the Powerhouse account.
Okay.
So, for example, the roof. The Powerhouse account wouldn't be something that you would tap the roof for.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Okay.
Just to me, and I'm not into the whole contract, so I'm not going to get there. But if the bus driver one right now, there's a budget for $28,000.
No, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be to pay for the bus
Salaries.
driver or anything like that.
If it's one of these line items here, whatever it is, if one of the budgets was feeling pressure to supply miscellaneous supplies or program supplies, that seemed to me there should be more flexibility. Program supplies is one of them things I think would be kind of nebulous, and how do you define what is a program
Well,
supply?
I think we have done it for some things for supplies in the
Yes,
past, where
yeah.
but for something like program services or vehicle inspections or something, it wouldn't be used for something like that because that's something that's on us. It'd be something that would benefit the seniors directly and not part of
let
it.
me clarify something else too. So a few years ago, you guys are all, I'm sure, familiar with the special revenue account that Park and Rec handles because that's a lot of money that goes through that. So a few years ago, the senior center also started doing that, and it was with specifically our program. So instructors, program supplies, things like that. So that is, we're in the process of pulling everything that's really program related out of the general fund and into the special revenue account. And that's one of the, you see the program subsidy, which we haven't used because we haven't had programs in a couple of years. But that's to help us go from something that was completely town supported to now something that's going to be
revenue, user fee supported. So that's sort of a goal to move into that direction. It's not sort of a goal, it is a goal to move into that direction.
Didn't you set aside funds in the Powerhouse Fund when you purchased air conditioners for seniors?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know that.
We
yeah.
could go back and look, but I think this
Yeah.
time we have purchased stuff and, we had a grant for so much money and I could be wrong, we'd have to go back and look, but then you'd say, then if there was $1,200 left, the Powerhouse account would make up the difference between whatever.
Right. Well, that was definitely with the vehicles.
Okay.
And that was because with the 5310 grant, it's a finite amount of money. And then so, for example, last vehicle that we purchased, the drivers asked for a seat that maneuvered, that went up and down so that it could accommodate, a short person or a tall person. And the Powerhouse account, we used that to help offset that, because that was an extra cost. And
That's right.
that
Okay,
seemed like that made sense.
Okay,
So,
yeah, so something extra.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I did have some
Yes.
other questions.
Sure.
The dial-a-ride, which one of these line items covers that, dial-a-ride?
It's not in here at all. So that's a grant that we write, and it's with 10 or 11 other towns. So, all right, let me back up a little bit. So there's, based on the demographics of the town, so how many people are 60 and older, and the actual square footage of or square acres of the town, the state has some sort of formula. And so, for example, and I'm just going to use numbers so Eastline gets, say, $12,000. Waterford gets $15,000. New London is designated $8,000, whatever. So we pull all this money together, and the town of Groton acts as the fiduciary for this. And then we contract with Eastern Connecticut Transportation Consortium to act as our broker to take the ride request, and then they broker with Curtin Livery to send out vehicles to get people to their medical appointments. So it's at one point we did have a line item in here because we were doing an enrollment fee. We had a bad year in which people paid an enrollment fee, and we went through the money because it was just and then we had some really hard feelings about people saying, I paid an enrollment fee, and now you're telling me I can't get a ride. So we've eliminated that, so we no longer have any pass-through here. So it's the town of Groton that really handles the money, but that's why you don't see it here.
Okay. And how many seniors do you service?
So transportation or program
All
or...
three legs of your stool. You
am I going to tell you my good year, which was a couple years ago, or am I going to tell you now?
If you expect this year to reflect your good year 2019.
Oh, it's not going to reflect.
But if it was.
So if we were going...
You're not going to be held accountable for this number. I'm trying to figure out if the answer is 20 or 220.
Okay, so let me just see here. So I'm going to give you 2018, 2019. So our total attendance figure for the year was 25,000 people. So we take up attendance for every single program. So if I have 6 people that come in for Scrabble and 30 people that come in for fitness, that's how all those numbers come. So it was 25,000 and some change. So our average daily attendance was roughly 105 people per day. Our unduplicated, which means if I come in once, I'm unduplicated. If I come in 12 times, I'm still one person. That was 1691. Did that answer your question?
1691.
1,691 different people
Okay.
somehow utilized. And what I didn't do with this, and which I am trying to be better about, is I didn't do any of the social service stuff that I do. So the energy assistance applications, the rental rebate, I don't include that in there. This was strictly program stuff.
Income tax, you did provide.
Yeah, income taxes were in here because that is a program.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I was trying to do, is I just look at your total budget, 265,892. If you have 1691, you're basically providing $156 per person
Over a year.
over a year.
So what's daily?
That's-
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that number, if it wasn't for the pandemic, that number would still be.
Yeah, we were,
I noticed it growing over the years.
and let me tell you a little bit about demographics. So, right now, the 55-plus population here in town is about 39% of the entire, and for 2025, it's projected to be out 42%. So you have almost half the population is going to be over 55 by 2025. In Connecticut, it's about 30%. So the 55-plus population in the entire state is about 30%. Here in East Lyme, it's about 39%. And I originally attributed a lot of this to the beach communities, and when back in the day when people worked in Hartford but came down here in the summer, and then everybody started to retire and then renovate their homes to winterize it. That was initial, and then we built all the 55-plus communities, so there's that. We have the 4 senior housing communities, and it's, you know, it's a nice town. It's a beach town. People like it. Have a nice boardwalk, go outside, walk around, walk downtown, you know. It's a good place to retire.
Any other questions for Kathy? No, Kathy, and bingo, is that back, or? I got a few times I got asked to go back over and call the numbers, and I mean, the prize is maybe $4 if you win the game, but, and if you're the one calling the numbers, don't take too long in between, because they'll tell you to get going. You know,
or if you're going too fast.
Or you're going too fast.
Or if you're making a mistake.
Yeah, no, you've already called that number.
Yes.
That's the number. Yeah.
Right.
No,
if you're doing the letter X, you shouldn't be calling any N. So if you make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I also wanted to talk to you about is our fleet, for a couple of reasons. So one, I think you probably all are aware that not once, not twice, but 3 times our vehicles were hit to have the catalytic converters were stolen. So we are now parking at the Public Safety Building, which we are grateful to have the spots, but it is, you know, not convenient, but they're safe. So, okay, so we're doing that. We currently have 3 vehicles. We have 3 vehicles. I wrote a grant, it's about, I don't know, a couple of years ago, or 18 months ago, for a new vehicle that should be coming online this summer, and it's going to replace the 2010 vehicle that we have now that has about 97,000 miles on it. So once that new vehicle comes in, we'll have a 2017, a 2021, and then a 2022. So that should be pretty good, and then we'll look to go to the 5310 grant in another couple of years to replace the 2017. So we have 3 vehicles. That works very well. We typically have 2 drivers on every day. It's nice to have that 3rd vehicle because they all have to go through for quarterly maintenance. They all have to go down for lift inspections on an annual basis. You know, so you need that extra vehicle so that when you got one sitting in the garage, you're still operating with 2.
And that's a vital resource for so many people in town too.
They're all wheelchair accessible, so makes it easy.
Okay. Other questions? Kat? Oh wait.
We're not going to need to do it.
Okay, you're all set? Okay.
Did I earn some brownie
Thank
points
you.
there? Yes, I will. I'll email you tomorrow about that. I'm sorry. I think we were just having a private moment. Are we okay?
Oh, no, that's okay. You're okay.
All right,
That's
thank
fine.
you.
Okay, Dave notified us a couple days ago. He had a serious conflict for tonight that he could not get out of, so we've rescheduled him for next a week from tonight, prior to our deliberations. Dave's, it's a big one, but it usually doesn't take a lot of time. It's not like Public Works or the police, so that shouldn't be a problem for next for a week from tonight. So, moving on to services for the community. These are all fairly, we just had it in here too. As you can see, this is up by just a little over $100 or so. The Eastline beautification, Family Service Station, the homeless shelter, NL New London Hospitality. That's got a different name now. It's But anyway, we always contribute to that. We've also made a donation through them already this year through American Rescue Plan, and that's good, a resource for there. Eastline cemeteries, as you know, we talked about the cemetery that we'd be taking control over in another few weeks. This is where the maintenance and upkeep for these cemeteries, all of them are done. How many do we have, Roseanne? You know,
Including the,
The one
I
we're
believe
about-
it's 16 or 18.
16, so we have people, and this, it just provides for the maintenance of these cemeteries. And like I said, we'll schedule something, once we're through the budget cycle. It's been a few years since they've come in and, talked about their location, and it's quite interesting. TBCCA, just a little increase in there too. They're starting to come back online. Student government, we always give a $1,000 scholarship. It's from the Eastline Board of Selectmen. That's always been in there. The Eastline Vets Council Memorial Day, the actual expense in 2021, that was because of the fact that that was for fiscal year 21. That was because of COVID. That is what supports the Memorial Day Parade. In fact, the VFW, Bill, you're probably aware of this. The VFW had to loan the Vets Council money last year in order to have the Memorial Day Parade because there wasn't, because they didn't have the resources that they had.
No, I didn't hear that. No.
Okay. Safe Futures is the one I was thinking for. We have the homeless shelter. Safe Futures is the other one. That's Women's Center in New London, so we support that. East Lyme Historical Society, again, that's back up a little bit from where it was because of COVID. The Main Street program, that speaks for itself. And the Sexual Assault Crisis Center of Eastern Connecticut. Okay, again, that's home. That's what's been requested. That's what we provide. The Brian Daigle Foundation, we've always given $1,000 to that as well. And the Southeast Cultural Coalition, again, these are all holding pretty much steady at what they are. The only increase was the $150 under the TVCCA up there. So, any questions on that at all? That's pretty.
I'm just going to comment on the cemetery one, and that is that the services of the town really only enter into when there's a crisis, such as a tree that has to come down or something of that nature. This is mostly, and these are all volunteers that work with this, on this, and the $2,500 would pay to repair one of the decaying historic gravestones.
If that, to be honest with you, yeah.
That's just one. And we're particularly concerned with the development coming in where Lulu's used to be, which backs right up to that cemetery, and those stones are extremely fragile, and at least 15 of them are in need of repair, as well as stones that have come to the ground and are lying in the ground, which of course means that those are decaying. And, there's nobody left alive to tend to them. There's no descendants. And it's a part of our history. The $2,500 is, very, very minimal. And most of the work that's done in the cemeteries are done by volunteers who come in to do clearing and things of that nature, the mowing, the raking. We have had to pay for some of the mowing services, but we have to be careful with that too, because some of the companies that would volunteer don't have the right equipment. And some of the lanes in the cemeteries are very narrow, and some of the stones have been damaged because they've been hit by the equipment.
And the weed whackers, sometimes they move back close to the stones and they
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
have the stones that way. The Boy Scouts did a thing where they planted lime or some kind of herbs around the stones in some cemeteries to try to keep it so that the weed whacker didn't have to come so close.
Well, that's a nice idea. Actually, that might be an idea to mention to the Scout organization.
When I was doing Eagle Scouts, it was
Okay.
some of the kids were doing their
Good.
Scout project.
Great idea.
Planting plants around the tombstones, or the headstones.
And the cemeteries do fall under the domain of the Board of Selectmen. We are required by state law that's one of the assignments they give us.
Okay.
So my question on this one was more of a generic question. Do we have a way to add and subtract organizations from this list?
Yes.
I know when Brian Daigle was added to this, it was just like at a Board of Finance meeting, somebody just blurted out, I want to add Brian Daigle's foundation to this list, and poof, they were added to the list. I don't know that this is the right list. I don't know this is the wrong list. I don't know if Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and a whole bunch of other nonprofits or other organizations belong in this. So my question is just more generically, do you have a process, do we have a process where we say these are the 10 organizations that we think we want to donate to and we think this is the right amount?
You know, not that I have an answer to that, but you've probably brought up a really good question. This might be a good time to re-examine how we do this too. You know, you look, and I know you didn't single out Brian Day, you just grabbed one off the list too, so I know that. But this is, I mean, there's some of these like Eastline beautification, yeah, there's no question, but we get down to some of the others.
In the past, it's been they've written a grant, they've written a letter and requested.
They've written a letter, but we haven't required those letters, to my knowledge, in a while.
To be honest, I would tend to increase the amounts more than decrease the amounts. If I look at how many people are affected by this, and if I read the narrative for what some of these organizations do, $1,000 is a drop in the bucket, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about suicide prevention, we're talking about women that were raped, and there's sexual assault stuff in here and stuff like that, and it's like $1,000 just seems like when we spend, you know, the Board of Ed increase this year alone was $2.4 million. So when I look at a $2,500 budget versus a $2.4 million increase,
Well,
I have to ask,
Yeah.
is there some adjustments here that we should make?
You know, that might be, and going forward, that probably would be a very good idea, you know, because like the Brian Daigle Foundation, I know serves tons of people in this town, you know, with issues and so forth, and it's spread out, and they're looking to provide more services there. You know, so that's something we could reach out to them and do. Going forward for next year, I mean, I don't think we'd be able to get it back for this year, but I think
No, I don't think
for moving forward, I think you bring up a really good point. Really good point. So, because like I said, Safe Futures, the Women's Center, that's the organization we gave some money to under the American Rescue Plan already. So, you know, obviously they're always going to be in need of stuff. So anyway.
Sometimes in the letters that have been written, there'll be some discussion about how Eastline residents utilize the services to such and such an extent. I mean, it's not on the order of what like we get from Ledge Light Health, which tells us some real data, but you'll get some of that. So maybe to you know, dovetail on your good suggestion, I think if we reach out, that would be to know how our own residents are affected by the organization. But then there's also a kind of, it looks from the look of this that we're also trying to reach into the region and the community. It's not just East Lyme. So that's another, I guess, you know, parameter we'll have to figure out.
But here again, too, what we've been trying to do with the Southeast Council of Government, Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments, is look into how do we do more things in that regional basis and areas like that. So I think moving forward, it's a good idea. Anna, Finance Department.
So,
Can we cut the treasurer in half? I'm only kidding.
So I'll just comment. There are really two areas where there have been some increases. One with the salaries, the account 311, which is the account where all of the my staff members are. I have three employees, one that does payroll, one that takes care of accounts receivable, and the other one is accounts payable. So the payroll and the accounts receivable positions are full-time at 37.5 hours a week. The accounts payable position, a few years back, we cut back the funding by 7.5 hours. So what I'm requesting is to restore it back to the 37.5 hours. Previously, although it was reduced to a 30-hour week, budget, I was budgeting 32 hours because there were certain times of the year, like the end of the fiscal year and the beginning of a new fiscal year, where that position is extremely busy. So it affords, it allows that employee to be able to work 37 and a half hours during a few weeks. At the beginning and end of the fiscal year, but I would, I'm requesting to restore it to the 37 and a half hours. There's been a lot more demands on my time, and so what I was looking to do is be able to carve out some specific tasks that I could delegate, to this staff member with the extra hours. So that's why I've asked for the increase there. And then the other area is in the maintenance of office equipment. So we're in the process of upgrading our accounting software to the Munis system. So next fiscal year, we'll have to start to, make the annual maintenance payments for that software program, which are, it's a pricier system than what we currently have. And then, as you know, we recently went through the appropriations process to purchase a time and attendance system, and there will be maintenance due on that next year as well. So that's all budgeted here, and that's the reason for the increase. We are, making a move from, to more robust systems, and along with that comes, pricier maintenance. And that's where the increases are.
And all that as well as saving time as well. So, and speaking, to when she mentions back to the 37, one thing I've noticed in the first couple months is, the premium of time here now, trying to get things done. As I mentioned, in the tax collector's office, they had a position that was 30 hours. And in the past, with that, it's enough to get you benefits, but it's not a full-time job, and it had an impact for the people that did the interviews on the quality of people that you'd get. At 37 and a half, it's a full-time. You're working 8 to 4. You don't have to worry about anything else. And both Chris Dixon and Sarah Rolfe, who's the administrative assistant to the tax collector, said the quality of candidates was much, much better. So I think, and here again, this only had benefits. You didn't add any benefits, so this just added the hours. And here again, that'll give, and one of the things I told Chris when I said, okay, we'll move that up to 37 and a half, is she's got a few very busy months. January and July are chaotic in there, and sort of the middle of December on and middle of June because of the tax bills going out and so forth. But I said that person will have to do a little cross-training too to help out in other areas. So we're trying to not increase the benefits, but bringing in the resources necessary to make sure everything can get done. And sometimes I've noticed, Sandy and I have noticed too, it's sometimes hard to get stuff done. And I think in the past, we used to have a receptionist. That person's gone. There used to be 2.5 people in the clerk's office. That half person's gone. There were 2 people in the selectman's office in addition to the first selectman. One of those is gone. I think we've gotten back to the point with, especially the request for services. This will help with some of the digitizing and the automation, but it's, and plus the requirements for reports have increased everywhere, as I think Tracy pointed out. When she starts telling me all the reports she has to fill out, it reminded me back when I was filling out paperwork for the state. It's confusing, so just to speak to that. Any questions for Anna?
Why do we do so many 37s instead of 40s? Is that paid lunches, unpaid lunches?
So it's 37 and a half hours is for whatever reason.
8 to 4.
And with a half hour for lunch.
But yet the Public Works and custodians work 40 hours. So, but that's just.
I just never seen so many 37s.
37 and a half. You know what? I remember back. This is what I was told. At one time, the state, back when Governor Grass was in office, they were having a financial thing, so the state agreed to, okay, you'd get a raise, but they'd cut your hours from 40 to 35. And then eventually they restored that time, but that was because they were in a budget crunch. So okay, we can still, and it helped avoid layoffs because they agreed to a 35-hour week. So that's the only thing I can think. Let's not go from 40 hours this year.
Well, at least salary people can go to 40, right?
Oh, I assure you, I don't know of many salary people in the building that are not here at least 40 hours a week.
Okay. That was my only question, was I just, 37 hours, 37 and a half hours to me just seems like it's a interesting number.
Okay, any other questions on that budget?
Just one quick
Yeah,
question.
sure.
The maintenance for the office equipment then, going forward, that will be the same price every year then? The maintenance is an annual fee? Or
It's like, for example, for the time and attendance system, that's actually just half a year of the maintenance, so the following year is going to be an additional $12,000. Because it has to do with the timing of the contract. So I requested that for next year, they bill us from January through June, so that, I could just budget for half of it. I wouldn't have to budget for the whole portion, and then going forward, it'll be a full year.
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll move on to the last item in tonight's review, contingency, which is a big number.
Yeah, one comment I'll make on the contingency
Yeah.
budget, if I may. So as we've gone through, we've had several budget meetings, and you noticed in the budgets, there really haven't been any increases in any of the salary accounts, except for where positions have been added, of course. And that's because all of our union contracts are set to expire June 30th of '22, so we don't know what their general wage increases are at this point. And in addition to that, the Board of Selectmen sets what the general wage increase percent for unaffiliated is going to be, and that hasn't been done yet for next fiscal year. So really, for all the employees' wages, we had to do estimates, and so that's how we came up with the
And Anna was, it depends, conservative in the fact that she wants to make sure there's a dollar figure in here to cover what might be coming. As we've talked about, and actually we're down to 3 unions now, because one did settle, but it's a 6-member union, so that really doesn't, it does, to be honest with you, because it does save us from having to go through a full negotiation. And another union has indicated, a larger union has indicated an interest to do the same thing a year, so that it'll be, they'll be staggered going forward, so that every 3 years you don't have to sit down 4 contracts, but we will be doing a couple. And one of the things, I think this past year, pretty much everyone was at 2.25. With the level of inflation, we know that's not going to happen, and we've seen some larger awards at the school level for teachers and so forth, so we want to be sure that we've got that covered. I think as we move forward, we'll have a better idea as to whether, if we can reduce that number a little bit and so forth like that. But you're looking at, it's a big number in there.
I mean, if we can get the 2 unions to, to get those 2 contracts resolved before we get to like the end, like in April, then we would be in a position to make a change here.
Yeah, and we'll be not tonight, but at our next meeting, I'll have had the first meeting with our labor attorney regarding the 2 contracts that we will be going into. So, if we have anything to report, we'll schedule an executive session to let everyone know what's going on there. But I've had conversations with all the unions and so forth, the heads, just, and you be careful not to make them off the record, because there's really nothing like that. Everything you say can and will.
I was going to say, it's probably not appropriate for me to ask you what assumption you used for this increase, because
that would be tough. Yeah. So anyway, but anyway, that's where we stand right now. Any questions on contingency? And we hope to have better news on this as we move forward. So, if none, that completes our special meeting. We got 20 minutes. We can relax. 19 minutes. So, motion to adjourn. Okay, well, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.